Well, for more on what actually happened, let's bring in retired Captain David Marquet. He's a former commander of the submarine USS Santa Fe and the author of the book, Turn the Ship Around. Retired Captain David Marquet, thank you so much for making the time. I just wanted to start off, and I think a lot of people can imagine what the Coast Guard meant when they called it a catastrophic event. But can you explain what you think happened?
I think the most likely scenario is that the mini sub left the mothership around 7 o'clock on Sunday morning and started descending toward the Titanic. As she was approaching the Titanic, both horizontally and vertically, an hour and 45 minutes into it, some minute flaw, could have been a crack, could have been one of the bolts between the end bells and the carbon fiber hull, could have been a fitting. Could have been a tiny dimple, a minute crack called catastrophic failure, immediate implosion, that's 380 times atmospheric pressure compressing the submarine, instant death for all on board, and then the pieces end up on the seabed below in the vicinity of the Titanic.
It's just something I don't think people can wrap their heads around because of the pressure that exists at that depth. But I also want to talk about how the Titanic wreck is 4 kilometers down on the seabed. Talk to us about how difficult any kind of a recovery effort could be in this part of the ocean.
Yeah, it's tough, but the right equipment is there now. The ROVs are down there. They have right now ROVs. There's a Canadian and a French ship with ROVs that are powered from the ship. So this means that they can stay down there for longer times. They have brighter lights. They have more power. They have little articulating arms, so they can start picking up pieces of the wreckage and bringing it up. And hopefully, we'll be able to analyze it. But I think you're right when you say people don't quite appreciate it. There are a number of questions, for example, about how are we going to recover the bodies? I don't think there's any bodies to recover because when in events like this happens so fast, so rapidly, that it just destroys everything, and they've been down there for 5 days. So I'd be really surprised that we find anything like that.
So when you consider all of that, I mean, what sticks out to you as some of those big challenges of trying to get anything back up to the surface?
Yeah, well, I hope they can pick up all the pieces. The good news is the pieces are away from the Titanic. It's described in a relatively clear area. It's not in your other rock formations. So we're not trying to pick pieces up and out of the Titanic. That would be a lot harder. So hopefully we can get a vast majority of the pieces. We can reassemble as best we can, and we can analyze what technically happened to cause the submarine to fail at that point, and then fix the problems, and as humans will do, march on.
Yeah, there were a number of questions at today's press conference around those sounds that were picked up by the sonar buoys yesterday. If it wasn't the vessel making those so-called banging noises, what do you think it could have been?
Yeah, my hypothesis is that because we were started hearing sounds as more ships were coming into the area, these ships have engine rooms, they have equipment, they have hydraulics, they're raising and lowering ROVs, they have cranes, they have crew members on board which are changing oil filters and things like that. And so we now have a bunch of man-made sources of sound in the vicinity. And my hypothesis is we were just simply hearing noises from those ships.
Right. Okay. Well, there has also been a number of concerns raised in recent days about the safety around these types of vessels. What do you want to see in terms of regulations now going forward?
I think it should be, first of all, really clear. If you're going on one of these vessels, there should be this big sign that says this is a not certified, not regulated experimental vessel, and enter here at your own risk and peril. We got to make sure it's really clear. I'm also not, I think all 4 of the men on the ship are not naive, and they certainly made the decision to go in. But when I think about the son of the Pakistani businessman, I feel really bad for him because I'm not sure he really had an independent choice in terms of going on board.
And I guess that also kind of raises some questions about this type of expedition anyways. You know, a number of people look at this and say that this is really tourism for people who can afford it, and in this case, you know, people who could pay that kind of money. Would you like to see this type of thing stopped altogether because of how dangerous it is and because of what was necessary in terms of trying to now recover it, or, you know, to search for this vessel when it did lose contact?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see it stopped altogether. 8 people died last month climbing Mount Everest, and we're still climbing Mount Everest. So what I think we need is, in this case, the company made a deliberate decision not to go down industry standard paths, not to do the regular industry certification and allows full scrutiny of their vehicle to outsiders in terms of how they operated and how the thing is designed and constructed. And my feeling is, hey, if you want to go do that, fine, but then don't at the same time say, and we expect governments to expend tremendous resources getting us out of trouble once we get into trouble. To me, there's got to be a little bit of a trade-off. Say, okay, fine, you're going to go do that. You're up on the mountain without ropes. We're not going to risk a helicopter to go get you. And as long as we're all clear-eyed about that ahead of time, I think it's probably okay. I mean, I'm inspired by the spirit of people pushing the edge of the boundary, and as a race, I'm sure we all benefit from people doing that. And sorry, one last thing is the money that they're making from the wealthy people paying is being used in part to subsidize scientific research. So, hey, what's going on with the oceans? I personally think we probably need to spend more time exploring the oceans and what's happening with them, especially in terms of global warming and changes that we see, because they're here now on Earth. And so we're living because of them.
Yeah, we're going to have to leave it there. Retired Captain David Marquet, thank you so much for making the time and speaking with us today.